So let me just, I have to mute that. To mute that. Well, welcome everybody to Soul Talk. This is Trish and Alli.
Hey.
And Alli and I were just having a conversation before we pressed record that we want to do these on a quarterly basis um, together, her and I, and do this from a perspective of we're both very soulful individuals. We're also solopreneurs, and we want to kind of just we feel like we have a really easy, free flow kind of conversation every time we wind up doing these. We don't have to do a lot of preparation, which is so huge for us to
Yeah.
be able to just jump on and kind of freestyle it. So, hey, Alli, how you been?
I've been great. I've been really good. I mean, there's been a little bit of this, but I've been
Uh-huh.
good.
I think this is like so natural. And I think this is kind of where we've been like, whoever told us that it was supposed to be like this? Because I think
Oh,
it's always going to be like this a little bit.
honestly, but I mean, I think that's the journey of life. And if we're not looking at it like this, it's going to be, like this. You
Like
know,
this.
whether we're going up or it feels like we're going down, but it's always going to be
So
a little bit more
fun.
circular than it
Yeah.
is linear.
Yeah. Well, and that's two manifesting generators talking about the nonlinear journey. And we love that because it's kind of true for us. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're an MG in human design, you might be able to really appreciate starting to hear that, this nonlinear, there isn't, for us anyways, it's not, one step then another, then another. Like we're always about two steps forward, three steps back. And, ooh, what's over here?
Oh, yeah. Oh, something else has my attention, but then there's still this thing over here.
Yeah.
That's
I still
probably
haven't got
why
to that yet.
it's probably why I have like, I mean, at this point in time, I probably have about 5 or 6 books that are half
Oh,
read. And then I come
absolutely.
back to them. It's kind of like I feel like books are kind of like a series for me. Like I get really into it and then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I kind of just need a break from this. I'm gonna just maybe watch this for a bit.
Yeah.
And then I always come back to it, but I just tend to
Mhm.
have a few that are kind of like just on my bedside.
I hear that. I've actually started being more, let's say, disciplined with myself about like not buying them, first of all, until
Yeah.
I've maybe had a chance to get my hands on it and, like either work through the table of contents or read the first three chapters. I have a lot of books. And so fortunately, I have, I use the library, right? And if I can't find it
Mhm.
there, then I usually wind up looking um, to other people to see if they've read it. But yeah. So on that note, what are you reading right now?
Um, this one is probably gonna like throw people to the surprise. Anyways, it's all about emotionally immature parents.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I actually,
Oh,
being somebody who's been in the, let's say the coaching world for like well over 10, 11, 12 years now.
mhm.
Um, I've been pretty well versed in the world of psychology, I would say, and I like to dabble down a lot of rabbit holes and this and
Yeah.
that. And, of course, when most people are looking to understand relationships, narcissism tends to be one of the big words that comes up. And I mean, really, we're all narcissists to a certain degree, right? We're humans, we have an ego. Just some of us are a little bit higher on that scale than others. And, anyways, I was actually looking to find a book on that. And then all of a sudden, I found this whole, big chunk of an aisle at Indigo that was all about emotionally immature people and parents. And
Oh,
it's been very, very interesting to learn
yeah.
about how when people aren't given certain things, as they're growing up, as they're being parented, that really there's these certain milestones that aren't being met. And it's almost
Mm,
like these people are literally being born without the wiring. And
wow.
so it's very, yeah, it's been very interesting and eye-opening for me, not only in terms of some relationships in my life, but to also better understand some of my clients who are, having some struggles with their relationships too. But it's been interesting because even, of course, we're not perfect by any means.
No.
I always say I'm a work in progress. Like that's
Mhm.
just, if I had everything perfectly figured out, well, I don't know, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be doing something else. Um, but even just reading it, there's even just little, pieces that I'm like, oh shit, maybe I kind of do that a little bit. Like I didn't
Mhm.
even realize that there's, that there's part of this, I'll call it like a personality type or however you want to word that. But I'm like, oh, okay. So it's been really kind of self-reflective to look at, okay, well, how am I parenting Hunter? Like I try to be really aware and just really, okay, how can I be as loving as I can be, but how can I still help him to understand that there are boundaries in life, and how do I still kind of practice, showing him what discipline means in a
Yeah.
in a safe and healthy way, right?
Yeah.
As I think we could kind of go too far on either end. We could go too gentle or we could go too harsh. And so it's like, how do I find that balance? So it's been really, really self-reflective for myself to go, okay, how am I showing up? Where are maybe some patterns in my behavior that I've kind of been blind to up until having this new awareness? So
Yeah.
I don't know, I just love learning, and it's been really, really eye-opening to gather this information. So that's what I've been reading.
Wow, that's very cool. I'm gonna tell a little bit about how that dovetails into something I've been working on this summer. Um, Something that I've been lovingly calling the Dad Project. And
Okay.
my niece has been hearing me talk about this for like the last 3 summers, and she's like, would you just work on this already? Stop
Okay,
talking to
tell
me
me
about it.
more. Tell me more. I'm curious.
So back to this idea of what this book that you're reading, right? Um, it and I think that, without getting all into the woo right away, like I hear a lot of people talk about like ancestral stuff, right? And,
Hmm.
you know, sure. I think it's really, really interesting because this has been on my heart and my mind for, I don't know, I'm going to say probably, like I said, 3 years, as long as I've been coming in and hanging out with my niece during the summers. So she's been hearing about it. And this summer, I really just have been dedicating some serious time to looking at my dad's charts from
Okay.
numerology, astrology, and human design, and writing a story, rewriting his story based on the themes that I see in his charts, and from the vantage point of if he had only known. If he had
Mm,
only known what was in his charts, I think he would have had a different life, but not a different life. He would have navigated his life in a much different way. I don't think that he would have not had kids, not had been married, all of the things that he did. I just think that there were some really key themes that if he had known about, maybe would have invited a completely different mm, end game for him. Um,
yeah.
and so that has been, and I find it interesting because I think, for the most part, he was ridiculously emotionally immature. Terribly very,
Mm,
very immature. But I also think, immature could just be another word or way of saying ungrounded, right?
mhm.
He wasn't grounded. He wasn't anchored into mm, the truth of who he was, who he
Yeah.
like. And again, this is kind of what I see come forward in his church. So it's been fun, really
Okay.
fun. And at the same time, I was just hanging out with some girlfriends last weekend that we all went to school with, and we get together in the summertime for a little reunion. And I was telling them about this, and they're like, "You just have such a lightness about your
Mhm.
dad that was not there when we were going to school, right?" So I'm like,
Okay.
isn't that cool, right? So you start to think about what are all the possibilities and potentials for, finding our way of making peace with whatever, And
Mhm.
whether it's, you know, through books or through little projects like this, or, you know, maybe more, you know, spiritual stuff. Anyways, so that's been fun for me. I've really been enjoying that process. Mhm.
That's very, very cool. And I think when it comes to relationships specifically, we tend to get really hung up on wanting to understand, right? And I think understanding is definitely beneficial, right? But I
Mhm.
think we have to sort of open up our maybe our expectations around what we're trying to understand. So are we
Mhm.
going to really get, even if we're looking at like human design and ancestral patterns and all these things, it's like there's still going to be pieces of this story that maybe that individual won't be able to tell us because
Yeah.
either maybe they're not here anymore and we're trying to process, or maybe it was too traumatic for them that they've packed it down and they're not even able to conjure that up again, right? So
Yeah.
it's like how much are we really expecting ourselves to understand? And then I think that
Yeah.
kind of leads into, that whole practice of acceptance. Well, can I accept that this is the story that I do have? And
Mhm.
can I try to maybe be empathetic
Yeah.
towards their situation, not negating, if there was, say, like abuse or there was, any type of that, right? We're not
Yeah.
saying, okay, well, that's okay. I'm going to let that go now because I'm empathetic towards you. But it's
Mhm.
just understanding that something generally happens to make that person the way that they are. And so when we
Yeah.
come to accept, it's, well, maybe I have to put up some really strong boundaries, or maybe I have to decide what this relationship looks like now. But, well, maybe I don't have to understand everything. Maybe
Yeah.
I can just, what's in front of me? What can I work with right now? As opposed to
Yeah.
trying to like drive ourselves crazy, trying to figure other people out when, what, at the end of the day, I'm still trying to figure out who the fuck I am.
Totally.
Like I have a pretty
Um,
good grasp now, but to
mhm.
sit here and go, okay, well, what was that person thinking when they said that? What do
Yeah.
they mean when they said that? Like the details of it, it's
Yeah.
like, is that worth it? So I think it's very cool that you've experienced this healing through this process of like
Yeah.
spiritual understanding of like, okay, what do
Mhm.
I have to work with? What tools do I have? How can I make sense of this
Yeah.
without actually trying to put yourself in that person's shoes, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And, you know, I mean, I've done a lot of work around dad up until this point, and I don't think I really had like any anger or animosity or sadness. I mean, there was probably sadness because, again, especially when I got to this place, starting to ask, "Oh my God, if he'd only known."
Mhm.
That's where it really started to hit me. It's like, "Oh my God, if he had only known," right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, he was such a charismatic figure that I just really believe that if he'd known, he would have gone all in on what was there for him. Anyhow,
Yeah.
so enough about that. What else has been going on for you this year so far?
You know what? Honestly, I feel like for myself, it's really been a season of, the self-reflection I talked about, but also this sort of like reevaluation. And I find that there's been sort of two particular themes, we'll say. So if we're kind of linking it back to like, the spiritual laws of success that I like to chat
Mhm.
about, I feel like there's been this link to sort of the law of intention and desire, but then also the law of detachment. But in a sense of, I don't know, and I just feel like, this time of year specifically, like it's my birthday today. So this
Yes.
time of year this is like my new year. Like
Mhm.
January, I'm like, oh, okay, it's everybody does the new year thing, but like this is the beginning of my year,
Yeah.
this fall time.
Yeah.
And I feel like, as we age and as we get a little bit older, we go a little bit more deeply into ourselves. And I feel like for me specifically, there's been this really big reminder of it doesn't matter what other people think about me. It doesn't matter if somebody judges me. It doesn't matter if somebody loves me. It doesn't really matter if anybody really truly accepts me. Do I really do all those things for myself? And I've been feeling like, I've gone through this really big journey of self-love and, coming to a place of looking in the mirror and not picking myself apart and actually going,
Mm.
wow, like you look beautiful today, and getting into that practice of things. But I think I've been learning that I'm really judgmental of myself still, not so much from a physical perspective anymore, but very much from a performance state of mind. So, like, how
Mhm.
am I showing up in my work? How am I showing up as a mother? So, very
Yeah.
much in terms of like my behavior. And so, for me, it's been really this year specifically, like, how can I maybe criticize those pieces of myself a little bit less? And how can I come to gift myself with some more grace? Because that's where
Mhm.
I've been lacking.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that in maybe how I'm looking at some other people who are maybe purposely in my life or maybe inadvertently in my life. But am I judging these people to a certain degree? I didn't really think I was, but maybe I am. So what is that showing me within myself? So there's been a really big piece about like stepping deeper into that state of self-referral and then also detaching from what others think of me,
Mhm.
but also sort of giving up these really vast Virgo expectations I've had of how I think I'm supposed to be at this point in my life.
Yeah.
So when I say this, it's been a lovely journey, but it's also been like a holy shit, like I've done lots of healing already. I have lots more to go. But so yeah, it's been interesting. It's been really interesting.
I can so resonate with that Virgo thing. And I was actually thinking back to um, two things. Number one, I was thinking it might be interesting to just kind of do a revisit of some of the themes that I had shared in Soul Align 2025 as what I'm seeing, as what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing. And so I have a really strong Virgo influence. It's not my sun, but it's my ascendant and it's my south node in astrology. And so I do feel like sometimes I'm more of a Virgo than I am my Scorpio sun. And it's kind of always playing in the background, this Virgo conversation.
Yeah.
And one of those things that came forward when I was looking at the themes for 2025 was the nodes moving into Pisces and Virgo. And for me personally, this is exactly what is in my chart. So my south node is in Virgo, my north node is in Pisces, and that's exactly where the nodes are right now,
Mm.
is Pisces north, Virgo south. So I feel like I'm getting an extra dose, or not an extra dose, but like just a really front row seat to, wow, okay, how do we work with this energy? How do we work with this, because they're kind of really different,
For
right?
sure.
Virgo, Pisces, very different. And you know, for me, I think the invitation that I've been receiving all the way through the year has been, mm, use your south node Virgo, use it to make your way into your north node, Pisces.
Mm.
Use all of that south node energy that is just so readily accessible, easily accessible to us,
Yeah.
and use it to actually start bringing yourself into what for the north node is like, that's like uncharted territory for us. Like, I don't know how to live like that. I mean, it looks great on paper. Sure, I can intellectualize that all day long, but I have really no idea how to, first of all, trust it,
Yeah.
trust that living in alignment with that particular, those themes and those insights and that energy is trustworthy. And then, like, how does that practically unfold for, and what, it doesn't matter if your north node is in Pisces like mine or if it's somewhere else. The conversation is the same, and at the same time, because this is something that like everybody on planet Earth is experiencing because of where the nodes are, we're also kind of dancing with this Virgo Pisces, whether you have it or not in your chart. So anyways, that's what's really come forward. And Virgo is so practical, so organized, like meticulous down to the detail, right? And that is just like, I mean, I roll out of bed ready for that in life, right?
But also somewhat critical.
Somewhat, just a little bit.
Just
But not, but you know, I watched this beautiful video. I'll have to share it with you. This beautiful video of this guy who was doing a breakdown of Virgo, and the way he did it was so funny. But I don't think he meant it to be funny.
Yeah.
Because he was saying, you know, like Virgos are ridiculously critical of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They are constantly looking for ways to improve and do things more efficiently and more effectively for other people. And so he would just do this little bit at the end. And I just howled because I'm like,
okay,
oh
I have
God,
to see this.
so
You'll
accurate,
have to send that to me.
so accurate, so accurate. Anyways, so I think that was one of the things that really kind of came to the forefront, because Pisces North Node is really an invitation to, in my interpretation of it, how I've come to think of it is, marry the spiritual with the material. There's no
Beautifully said.
separation, right? Back to that, you know, the principle of correspondence in Hermeticism. It's actually really perfectly reflected in Pisces. And it's like everything is spiritual, whether you agree with, whether you like it or not. It's spiritual, it's energy, it's like the unseen. That's all it is. Some of it just happens to be showing up in the 3D form right now, and you know, but everything that like cause and effect, and it's just all the stuff, right?
Well, you know, and honestly, I think one of our, and I'm going to say our as in like every human on the planet, one of our you know, goals, for lack of a better word, is to integrate, you know, and and I've said this so many other times too, I think even in our talks, where it's not about just reaching for the spiritual and then wanting to live there. It's okay, how can I connect or align with the spiritual and utilize that energy to better my human experience, or to understand my own human experience, or to really connect with my soul, figure out what that's supposed to feel like for me, because it's going to be very different for everyone. So it's this integration of the spiritual with the material, because you know, both are necessary in order to have the experience. You can't really have one without the other as a human.
Yeah, I agree. And so you've put that beautifully in terms of, you know, if anybody wants to know what I've been wrestling with this year, this is it. And because I've spent a lot of time in that spiritual realm of like, and almost to the point of divorcing, like, oh, I don't want to live in the world. Like, no, I'm just here. I'm just here. I'm just here, but I'm really here. I'm really not here. I haven't really been here, present and engaged in the way that I think that this Pisces Virgo inner like axis is really inviting us to embrace and embody. It's, you know, there is and I had this conversation with myself this morning, a fun little story. One of my this year I went and picked up a part-time job as a gardener and a groundskeeper, because I just wanted to be outside and I thought I wanted to get paid to be outside. So that's where I was this morning thinking about this, that, you know, really what, and I think that there's probably other people who have been speaking about this, and maybe I just haven't really resonated with them yet. But what is more spiritual than being completely present to the human experience? What is more spiritual than meticulously engaging with whatever your day looks like right?
Mhm.
Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now, right? Be here, be present, be now.
Yeah.
What's more spiritual than that? And I'm going to just leave it there and see where you might take that, because it kind of hit me as all this time I've been thinking about, like, how do you live a spiritual life? And
Mhm.
I'm, in my podcast, I've been talking about gradually working towards the spiritual paradigm of, your language, love and above. But what if it's not what we think it is? What if it's not at all what we've been taught or told or, you know, led to believe?
Mhm.
Living the spiritual life is actually so ordinary. I don't know.
Oh, yes, yes. It's about this active participation, and it's about realizing, like, I might ruffle some feathers when I say this, but spirituality has become like a bit of a fad.
Mhm.
Okay, it has become a bit of a fad, and um, when I first started entering into the spiritual world, I thought, okay, well, spiritual people practice Reiki. But that wasn't why I practiced Reiki. That was
Right.
sort of like as I was practicing Reiki, I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess this means I'm spiritual now because I'm practicing Reiki. I was literally just doing it to like get through the day and figure out
Yeah.
how to heal myself so I could still be here.
Yeah.
But as I was sort of entering into the spiritual world, you go on Instagram or TikTok or even YouTube now, it's like, okay, well, spiritual people wear jewels on their heads and they wear spiritual clothes and like there's this persona, right? But it's like, no, it's like there's a bit of an ego in the spiritual world right now. you
Sort
know
of.
it doesn't a little bit. That's like, I'm just turning down the critical Virgo right now. But there's an ego in it, and I think in the early part of my spiritual journey, I felt like I had to sort of fit into that.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
no, it's like you don't have to be a Reiki practitioner to be spiritual. You can be an accountant, you can
Yeah.
be a surgeon, you can be a
Yeah.
housekeeper. Like,
Uh-huh.
it doesn't matter what your
Yeah.
profession is or what kind of clothes you wear or how many crystals you have at home.
Or
Like,
what
it's
practices
always
you have and which ones you don't have. And yeah.
yeah, and
Hmm.
it's become about like, okay, well, all of a sudden it's like, well, how much spiritualism can money buy you? Right? Like,
Right.
how many rose quartz crystals do I need? It's like it's putting boundaries on things. And so really, like you say, and I think you've said it perfectly, is practicing spirituality is really about embracing the ordinary, or like being okay that, okay, well, this is my life. I don't need to make, I don't necessarily, based on your soul journey, you don't necessarily need to make six figures
Yeah.
as a coach,
Right.
and you're not
Because,
going to do it
how many of them
overnight.
actually are? Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong.
in order to make a living, and to in order to live a really joyful life. My doggy might start barking any second now, so I'm just going to mute myself there and see if you've got anything to add to that, Trish. Okay.
Well, it's funny because my niece's dog did start barking, and I didn't realize that her husband hadn't gone to work. So here I'm yammering away, and he's in the kitchen. So funny. Anyways, what really strikes me in what you were just talking about, and oh boy, I actually didn't intend to go here, was just, I think what you were talking about in terms of what has been shown to us and labeled as marketing, or labeled as spiritual, marketed as spiritual. And
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with marketing in general as an industry. Um, I love what the field is capable of. I'm not such a fan of what the industry's done to it. But it does then get me back to this place of everything is spiritual then. Everything is spiritual. And or it could be because if everything is if spirituality is everything that's ordinary, then you're in this kind of just bouncing back and forth. And I think, come back to Pisces Virgo, I think that's the lesson in mastering this axis where the nodes are right now, is allowing ourselves to live with one foot in two worlds, live with one foot in Pisces, live with one foot in Virgo, and allowing that equilibrium, that kind of back and forth and moving. And today I'm feeling these things, but today I'm focused on the practical stuff. Or in this moment, I'm focused on the practical stuff. And now I'm right, like here I am, weeding one of the gardens over where I've got this job. What more, like, it's so practical, like it's just so ordinary weeding, and just so much insight and revelation has been coming through this experience of weeding and moving plants around and gardening and whatnot. Anyways, I think what you were just saying about that, though, is the same thing. Like if you're a solopreneur and you're listening to this, or even if you're in a bigger business, it's been shown to us in a certain way. And I think that certain way is just a load of horse shit. And
I 100% agree.
it took me more than a decade to finally not just figure out, but acknowledge, accept, and to start articulating that it's a load of horseshit. It's just an absolute load of garbage. Some of that stuff will work for some people, but this one size fits all cookie cutter approach to doing this is just, and it's so defeating. It's so defeating, right?
Oh, you know what? Incredibly. And I think it's important to remember that there are seasons, just like we actually see out in the world around us, but there's seasons to our evolution, there's seasons to our business, there's
Yeah.
seasons to all of this. And even when it comes to, the world of entrepreneurship, right? That there's going to be seasons in that too, where you might have a couple great months and then something happens and you're like, oh shit, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
But
Right.
that
Yeah.
also, that when we are, for those of us who do bring spirituality into our work,
Which I
right,
love this.
regardless of what that work is, that there's going to be a lot more intention within the work that we're doing, which requires a lot more focus, which requires a lot more presence. And so sometimes, in that scenario, when we're pouring ourselves into our work that way, sometimes we almost need a different outlet, right? So whether
Mhm.
that be, it's the part-time job where I get to actually
Yeah.
go and like practice meditation throughout the
Yeah.
day, where I get to be with the ground and
Mhm.
plant flowers and pull weeds, like that's a very meditative process, right? So it's
Yeah.
like sometimes we almost need um maybe an outlet isn't the best word, but we just need to find that balance of, okay, well, I want to be really intentional with this, but maybe sometimes it's okay to also
Right.
not
Yeah.
be, and just kind of go through the motions of some things.
Yeah. 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 And I'm trying to determine how much of what you're saying is just like a truth, and I'll let the audience decide for themselves, because I'm resonating with it because I'm a manifesting generator. I'm resonating it because there is this like multi-dimensional aspect to MGs that I feel like it's just so natural for us to want to go in a lot of different directions, and actually need to go in a lot of different directions in order to make the best use of our energy. But this might be true, and I would love to see in the comments from other people if this is true, regardless of what your human design might say. I want to also be mindful of time. So we've been chit-chatting here for about 40 minutes or so. And I usually try and keep these to about 45 minutes. But what's the one thing this year so far that is surprising you?
I think for me specifically, when I talked a little bit about relationships at the beginning of our conversation, is I've had some really wild shifts in perspective
Mm,
where I thought I kind of knew my place in relationships. I thought I had a good understanding or a grasp of how I thought others were showing up in relationships. And I've just come to notice that there is a greater vastness to the dynamic of those relationships. And so
wow.
um there's been a lot of learnings about myself in that process. There's been obviously learnings of other people. There's also been almost like a little bit of grievance in a sense where it's like, oh, I thought it was this way, or maybe I just always wanted it to be that way,
Mm,
but it wasn't actually. And so now looking at these dynamics with new information and a shift in perspective, there's been a little bit of um like there's been a bit of like a sadness, I'll say, of like, oh shit, like maybe this wasn't as good as I thought it was,
mm,
or maybe this could be deeper. Like maybe I wasn't loving this person as deeply as I could have been loving this person. So like a bit of a grievance around that, I guess,
yeah.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And so I feel as though this year it's yeah, I just bring it back to this like reevaluation and this reflection of um some things aren't what I thought they were. And I'm doing, I'll say, my best to look at them through spiritual eyes to
Mm,
see, okay, well, what can I learn from this? How can I influence or change this? What's actually within my control? Um, and how can I navigate this with grace? So
yeah,
there's been a just a real shifting in that way.
that's very cool.
How about for you?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me back. I would say to you, I think that um, so many things surprised me this year so far. I think the probably let's pick this one. Um, season 2 of my podcast was all around the map of consciousness,
Mhm.
and I had already been working with it for I don't know, probably like the last 3, 4 years. No, yeah. I mean, it's just a random time frame. And for those of you who know. But what surprised me was how present all of these themes have started to become in my everyday life, even more so than they
Mm,
were before, right? So they were very
okay.
present up until about, like when I started looking at this for the last 3 years or so, really kind of trying to get my head around like what was he thinking when he wrote this? What was he thinking
Mhm.
about when he made those connections? But it's just been almost to the point, almost to the day that I like finished the last episode. I like just over and over again. Oh, here's consciousness. Here's reason popping up again. Oh,
Mm,
look at that. I'm back down in fear. Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Oh, wait, hang a second. I'm here in neutrality again. Oh, I thought I was living at courage, but this is really, really in like I don't want to say demanding, but it's really pressing me to be
Yeah.
brave. Like all like just nonstop for like the last 3 months, I would say. So that has been surprising in the most delightful way because just when you
Yeah.
think you know everything, you find out you don't know shit from Shinola. And you're
Well,
back in the human experience again.
that's and as you're saying that, I just it makes me also think back to the map of consciousness and how amazing of a resource that is, and
Yes. So
if
good.
I try to reiterate, what I just said in a different way, I think it's about me making space. Like at the end of the
Mm,
day, it's about me um, making space so that I truly can be in the state of love, not
yeah.
just like, am I giving it? Am I receiving it? Where do I find it? It's like, how do I actually be in that state? And, as Dr. Hawkins speaks to it, is like, how do I relate to the world through the lens of love? How do I actually do that authentically?
Yeah.
Not just professionally or not just from the place of integrity, but like, how do I do that authentically? Because I feel like, especially as solopreneurs, when we are the face of our business, there's a bit of an extra weight to go, okay, well, how much of me do I show?
Yeah.
Because, I like to drop F-bombs and I like to make funny voices
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm constantly like a big goofball, but like,
Uh-huh.
okay, but people still need to take me seriously. So, it's
Yeah.
making space for more love, for more of
Mhm.
me to be in that state of love, and allowing other things to shift as they may without having to hold
Interesting.
on to detach from that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so it's on that note, I was chatting with somebody the other day, because I still teach yoga every so often at one of the local studios. And
okay.
she was saying how I was telling her how my hands were just so sore. And I don't know if it's because of the amount of gardening that I've been doing, or
Mhm.
maybe I don't know. So I was just saying, like I wake up in the morning and I can barely close my hands. They're so sore. So I
Okay.
mean, I'm doing all the things, right? Doing all the stuff, and I'm much better, much better. But I went back to Louise Hay's book on Heal Your Body to better
Yeah.
understand, like, what would she have said about the hands. And in her language, it was really about gripping, bracing, and not just like gripping the machinery, bracing, but
Yeah.
this is so much more an energetic conversation that she brings forward, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in me, I'm bracing and I'm gripping and I'm holding on to something
Mhm.
that I actually need to learn to let go of, right?
Yeah.
And so that's probably another conversation at some point. But I thought it was really interesting as I was sharing with this lady. She was like, I've never heard of Louise Hay. What's she all about? And so we were just chit-chatting about it. And she was like, oh, that's probably not for me. And I'm like, well, that's okay. That's okay. I'm
Yeah.
just saying it kind of really resonated for me because I mean, what I learned when I was studying yoga and yoga therapy was that our body is a barometer for everything. So it makes sense
Mhm.
that something is trying to reach a new level of consciousness for me. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of resisting. So it's taken the back door in and coming in through my body
Yeah.
for me to be able to you know not not grapple with, but to so here was the mantra or the affirmation that Louise Hay gave for hands. She says, I lovingly I receive, or I hold this experience with ease, and I
Mm.
receive the love and the joy and the peace and the enlightenment that is within it. And I was
Oh,
like, oh my
beautiful.
God, those are like the top four of the spiritual paradigm from the map of consciousness. And
Yeah.
the whole language of it was just so spot on for me.
And how amazing when we shift our language around something.
Oh, language.
It's very powerful when we can do that. So that's incredible. I got goosebumps as you were sharing that
That
affirmation.
was it was a nice moment, and I don't know what she'll wind up doing that with that, but this lady that at yoga, but more than anything, I love the idea. Again, here you are, just it's just such a practical thing. Like here it's a moment, you're in the now, and when I'm able to step back out of it and look back on it, I'm like, that was a really spiritual moment right there. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have guessed it because that's not how I wasn't showing up as spiritual. I was
Yeah.
showing up as, my hands hurt. I don't know if it's because I'm teaching,
Well, you
right?
were showing up as the gardener who was planting seeds.
Mhm. 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 Or in this case, replanting rose bushes.
There we go. There we go.
Oh, Alli, great conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh, of
Thank
course. I
you so
loved
much.
it too.
Is there anything you'd like to leave with people today?
I think just bringing it back to that, the state of being of love. Just
Mhm.
asking yourself, how can I be more in that state? What does that actually mean for me? And just being curious as to what doors that might open or perhaps close in the
Yeah,
process. The
yeah,
making of space shows up in many different ways. So
yeah,
just being open to how that chooses to show itself to you.
yeah. I would resonate. Reinforce that from the perspective of my hands have just been telling me there are some things that we're probably bracing and gripping and holding on to that
Yeah.
we can lovingly let go of.
Yeah.
Lovingly
Just
let go
place
of.
them, gently place them down.
Hold the experience with ease. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so, so much. And like I said, everybody, Alli and I are going to do this on a quarterly basis. I'm trying to figure out how I can live stream onto Substack. But for now, I will continue to live stream onto YouTube and then upload to Substack. And so whether you're following me on Substack or on YouTube, you'll find it in both places. I'm just getting everything uploaded from what has not been there on Substack if you're looking for them. They're not all yet there yet, but they will be. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for
Thank
having
you so
me.
much. Thank you so much. All right. Be well, everyone.
Take care.